Hey everybody, this is Perch. And I've talked about what is the winning scenario, what is the accomplishment scenario for comics. And typically I phrase that win scenario or that accomplished scenario in terms of sales. I do that because that's the tangible thing that, I can point to. There are other reasons why you may want to get a comic done or what is a winning scenario for you, and we're going to get into that exactly right here. But I want to thank Eric Canetti, who's been on the show and is an incredible artist. I look at his stuff and I'm like, man, why are you not on several books? Why are they not paying you a lot to be on multiple books? He's just a astounding artist. But he points out correctly, by the way, that I often describe things a win scenario based on units moved or sold, but clearly that isn't the win scenario, at least not for several of the publishers, because it does explain then why they do a little bit of what they do. That and sometimes that the win scenario is it just gets printed. That just the fact that it gets into the world, it's printed is the win. And to kind of back that up a little bit, you can look at certain creators, certain writers who take great delight in making things canon. It's canon now. You can't get rid of it. It's canon. And there's even been meta humor inside books. Kelly Thompson with that little shark, land shark character she has. It's like, hey, the land shark was in, I think, West Coast Avengers, and the comic got canceled. It was in Gwenpool, and then like they made sure the shark got into Deadpool, and with commentary of like, now that it's in a more popular book, people can't ignore it. This is also why you've seen in the last 5 years a lot of writers, creators are suddenly throwing origins into things that didn't have origins before. In many cases, it was enough to just let the character, be that some origins are mysterious. But like now in the X books, you've got Malice getting an origin, and you get all these kind of B or C supporting characters getting parts of their history. Now, why are they doing this? Well, a few reasons. One, just practically, if they get an origin in there and then the origin gets picked up in a movie, then there may be a royalty check coming their way, or at very least thanks. And that's part of what people are doing as part of the win scenario, is to be recognized. Even if financially there's no win, you get recognized. We've seen very obscure comics and very obscure storylines. When I say obscure, I mean things that aren't moving a lot of numbers, things aren't selling a lot, be used for movies and be part of the MCU. And then that suddenly it brings them to more prominence. Maybe it adds to sales. Oftentimes it doesn't. One of the more striking things that happened is that the Black Panther is a movie that comes out and makes more than $1 billion. And certainly a lot of elements from that Black Panther movie were lifted from Ta-Nehisi Coates' Black Panther run. But the comic itself was selling in the teens at various parts in its run, and definitely under 30,000 for the vast majority of its run. So even though it was getting a lot of attention in the movie, you didn't see those sales picked up in the comics. People weren't going from the movies to the comics. So topics are getting put into the comics, but they're being seen by a very, very small audience. Now, why is that? Well, I mean, the biggest and easiest one is the movie audience is not the comic audience. And there's a million reasons for that. Some of them financial. If it costs, nearly the same amount for a movie ticket as it does, a comic book, or worse, if the movie is free because you're on the family streaming service, and the comic book is going to cost you $4.99, arguably the comic costs you more for much less content. That's just kind of the math that goes on in people's heads. But the win scenario that we talk about sometimes, about just getting it out there, getting it in print, is indicative of something I think is broken in the industry. But it's a tough one. If you go up to a creative person and you say, hey, are you making money, or how much money are you making, a lot of creative people will be turned off by that conversation. The idea of putting dollars and cents into their creative efforts, into their creativity, some people will find it actually offensive. There are several comic creators who would find that whole line of questioning and that whole concept, very offensive. That they're not in it for the money. They're in it for the creative expression. They're in it for, to create. And that's fine. I think, everybody is owed and deserves their own reasons for doing things. And if your reason for making comics is to invent and create and not to be wealthy, then that's your call. I think that should be an individual choice. The challenge I have is it's less of an individual choice and more of an industry choice at this point. It's like there are a number of comic creators who are comfortable with the idea of not making a lot of money, uh, but that isn't being decided by the comic creators anymore. It's being decided by the industry having low rates. It's being decided by the fact that comics are not paying very much, that you can't get wealthy making comics by and large. Yes, I know there's people who've done it when they take their own independent options, but if you're a comic artist and you're working for Marvel or DC or one of the big guys, your odds of being very, very wealthy are small. Your odds of anything in comics are small. There's some people who have made tons of money off crowdfunding. That's great. But by and large, most people are not making a sustainable living doing comics. That's the state of the industry. I think that's wrong. I think that the option should be there to be able to make lots of money. I think if you, as a creative, as a creator, you don't want to make that money, or you don't care. Hey, you could donate to charity. You can agree to take less. There's lots of options for you. I just don't think it's a good idea that your win scenario is impacting so many others. And unfortunately, I think once you take the money out of the equation, then it opens up all the motivations to a number of very silly outcomes. The least of which is whether or not people read your comic is disconnected from whether you're successful or not. And why I say that's silly is because it is fictional. If you don't sell comic, look, I put it this way: if you are on Twitter right now, and the whole debate is going on around Jordan Peterson and Ta-Nehisi Coates, and Coates taking a swipe at Peterson. If you're on Twitter, you might assume that this comic, Captain America, is one of the top selling comics of all time, in part because some people are saying that. Like, comics have never been more popular, and this is a great way to stick it to Jordan Peterson. The challenge is that's not reality. The comic is not doing well. The trades aren't doing well. The floppy is not doing well. The numbers are poor. By the way, just to be fair about it, the numbers are not poor because Coates is taking a swipe at Jordan Peterson. The numbers are poor long before this Peterson issue existed. It's not like people saw this, and this is where fair has to be fair, because a lot of people were in it like, I'm boycotting Marvel forever. I'm not buying this comic because he did this. Well, sure, but nobody was buying the comic anyway. Like when the sales drop under 30,000, when you're in the 20s, you're not having an impact. That's not enough people. Many tweets from blue checkmark people are getting far more likes than sales of comics. So, just to be fair about it, whether or not Peterson's getting attacked or referred to as a Red Skull doesn't matter. Very few people are watching it. I would say it doesn't matter. I mean, from a sales perspective, it doesn't matter. The people have already fled it. I don't know who of that, is it possible that some of the 24,000 people who are buying Captain America will stop buying it because of this moment? Like, this is the straw that breaks the camel's back? Sure. But my point here is when you're at 24,000, it doesn't matter anymore. It's at that point, you're too low to be profitable and successful. So you could be a little bit less unprofitable, I guess, but that's not. When I've done these videos about we should be hoping for better, we should be shooting for more, that's kind of my point. Like, we shouldn't be spending this much effort and this much attention fighting for something that is going to sell 14,000 copies or 15,000 copies. Those are both lousy. Those are both bad. Now, for the people creating them, they may be completely disconnected from the sales, and many are, to the point that they're just proud they get the thing in print. That's cool. A lot of people used to write letters to the newspaper or to the magazine to see their names in print, and that was exciting for them. And in many ways, that's kind of where some of the creators are at now. They're just excited to see their names in print. But the point is that is not a lasting strategy. Ta-Nehisi Coates' Captain America run is ending. It's not ending because it was so amazingly successful that we just can't do anymore. We've done everything we possibly can do, and we're going out on a high note. It's actually going out on a low note. It's going out from a sales perspective. It's going out some of the lowest sales in the history of the comic. It's going out at lower numbers than comics were pulling in during the crash of the 90s. That's not going out on a high note. That's not picking your spot. That's not, that you're not achieving a great victory there. Maybe a self-moral victory. And if that's what you're after as a creator, again, that's your choice. Good for you. And that's perfectly fine. You don't have to measure your life in terms of sales. But the publisher should. The publisher can't be in the business of moral victories, because if they are, the publisher is going to go out of business when those victories don't add up to sales. And the dirty secret in this industry is that's where it gets to anyway. Titles that are low selling do get canceled. Maybe not right away, maybe not quick enough to stop the bleeding, but they don't last. Today, despite all the videos and all the attention, Gabby Rivera's America Chavez is not still going. Gabby has not moved up to writing for the Avengers or Spider-Man. Gabby's nowhere to be seen. Cena Grace, he's not writing a top title. Why? Well, it could be a lot of reasons why, but the coldest, hardest, clear one is he didn't put up numbers. If Cena Grace had been selling 150,000 plus copies of Iceman, Marvel would be begging him. No matter what he did, they would be begging him to write. That's not the world that we live in. So it's a tough one, because on one hand, it's actually not that tough. I think creators, they should be in it for whatever reasons, whatever personal reasons motivate them. That's fine. Maybe it's money, maybe it's a moral victory, maybe it's recognition, maybe it's seeing their name in print, maybe it's to work with a certain creator they've always wanted to work with. Lots of motivations there. That's up to the individual. It's up to the creator to be motivated by whatever they want. But the publisher and the people who work for the publisher, the vice presidents, the editor-in-chief, those people, to them, the win condition has to be sales. If it's not, the company is put in jeopardy. Their jobs go away, and eventually they find somebody who can. You can subsidize a comic company as long as you want, but eventually, if you're not bringing in a profit, if you're not bringing in cash, that ride is going to be short. And that's kind of the reality of the business. So anyway, is what it is. Hey, everybody, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and thanks for listening.